All right, guys, welcome back to the Black History Month book tour. Today, day 2, we're going to be talking about Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. So first, who is Harriet Jacobs? Originally, she did publish under the name Linda Brent. In fact, she had used pseudonyms for herself and all the characters in this book for a couple reasons: to legitimize her story and to protect herself against the repercussions of talking about something like sexual violence. She was born in 1813. She was a child of mixed parents. She was fairly light-skinned, which is important to her slave narrative. She was enslaved in North Carolina until her escape in 1842. She published the book, this one right here, in 1861, and she passed away in 1897. So what time period and what geographic kind of context or area are we talking about? We're talking about the early to mid-19th century antebellum South, which is basically 1815 right up to the start of the Civil War in the 1860s. More specifically, we're talking about North Carolina. Doesn't really talk about plantation slavery, which is what you think about when you think about the antebellum South. This is more of kind of a tight-quartered domestic form of slavery. So what's the significance of the book and the significance of the slave narrative genre in general, which is very important to Black history? Number one, the book's about womanhood and female slavery. What Jacobs does is amazing. She's such a skillful writer. Creates what I would call kind of like a cult of womanhood or true womanhood. She writes about her experiences with marriage, sexual partners, chastity, Christianity, which are very taboo at the time. And she does it in such a skillful way that sometimes you don't even realize she's talking about it or making a comment on it. Most importantly, she was able to carve out a life for herself despite her status as an enslaved woman. She found a way to survive. She had choices. She carved out autonomy, which is, again, a story about Black history. Secondly, we talked about the kind of physical violence and sexual violence that female slaves were forced to endure through decades from their white male oppressors and enslavers. However, she also discusses one of the more recognized aspects of female slavery, which is the psychological toll that it really takes on someone to be the constant subject of all kinds of ways to try to capture the hearts, minds, souls, perspectives, memories, emotions in a non-physical way that can really wear on someone. The book is really written in comparison to Frederick Douglass's slave narrative. Douglass speaks and writes from a very male perspective, a rugged American perspective per se. Jacobs provides a very different view of her escape from slavery, which is really centered around her children, her being a woman. The story is really amazing. And lastly, just like every slave narrative, whether it's Harriet Jacobs, Frederick Douglass, William Wells Brown, Ellen Craft, or anybody of the like, the slave narrative is an oxymoron. Just the act of writing and the act of creating is something that is very unique and really kind of shows and exposes the hypocrisy and the lunacy and the ridiculousness that white supremacy and slavery are.